Jesus finds a mother burying her own son alive. He was saved in time. She was arrested. Dry Creek was a forgotten town tucked between the dry hills of northern Arizona, a place where silence seemed older than the buildings and secrets outnumbered the people. There were no crowds, no noise, no bustle, just dust drifting across the streets, a few dogs wandering without direction, and neighbors who preferred polite distance over real concern. It was the kind of town where tragedy could sit on a front porch for hours and no one would lift their eyes to see it. 3 days before everything changed, a stranger arrived with nothing but the clothes on his back and a calm that didn't fit the harshness of the land. He had long dark hair, a well-kept beard, quiet eyes, and a presence that seemed to soften the air around him. He introduced himself simply as Jesus. Most people assumed it was just a name. Strange, maybe, but not extraordinary. Yet anyone who talked to him for more than a minute felt something shift inside them, like their worries suddenly weighed less. He spent his days helping without ever being asked. One morning, he repaired a widow's fence. In the afternoon, he helped a boy find his lost dog. The next day, he carried groceries for an elderly couple who struggled to walk. He didn't ask for money, didn't preach, didn't push himself into conversations. He simply appeared where he was needed, as though he sensed pain before anyone showed it. That was how he first crossed paths with Mara Ellis. Mara looked like someone who had stopped sleeping weeks ago. Her clothes hung loosely on her thin frame. Her hair rarely saw a brush, and she carried herself as though existence itself were too heavy. Her eyes darted constantly, never resting long enough for anyone to truly see her. In town, people whispered that she was strange, unstable, unpredictable, but no one cared enough to understand why. Her son, little Luke, was barely 5. A soft-spoken, gentle child with wide brown eyes that always seemed to be studying the world, confused by its cruelty. He was rarely seen outside. Some neighbors worried, others judged, but no one intervened. Dry Creek treated suffering like it treated stray leaves, something to sweep aside and ignore. Jesus saw Mara in the grocery store aisle late one morning, standing motionless in front of a row of fruit. She wasn't choosing anything. She wasn't even fully present. Her hands trembled. Her breathing came in sharp, quick bursts, and her eyes were glazed with a fear she couldn't name. "Are you all right?" Jesus asked quietly. She flinched as though touched by electricity. Her voice came out too fast, too defensive. "I'm fine, just tired." He didn't believe the words, but he didn't push her. He simply nodded, and she walked away, holding a single apple like it was the last affordable thing in her world. Jesus watched her leave with a heaviness he could not ignore. That night, something inside Mara finally snapped. Neighbors heard her pacing outside at impossible hours. Some heard muffled crying, others soft rambling, and at least one recognized the unmistakable panic of a mind unraveling. But Dry Creek kept its windows closed and pretended none of it mattered. Nobody called for help. Nobody checked on her. By sunrise, Mara was running on nothing but fear, irrational, suffocating fear. Her thoughts spiraled until even the simplest ideas twisted into danger. She convinced herself she was being followed, watched, threatened by forces only she could see. And somewhere in the chaos of her mind, she became certain that her son was in danger too. Her love for him twisted into a desperate, panicked urge to protect him at all costs. Jesus woke that morning with a heaviness he couldn't explain. He didn't know where he needed to go, only that he needed to walk north, past the church, past the pines, toward the fields beyond town. Something unseen guided his steps, pulling him toward a terrible moment he had not witnessed, but already felt. The air grew colder as he moved through the trees. Birds were silent. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. When he stepped into the clearing, he saw her, Mara, kneeling on the soft earth, digging with frantic, shaking hands. Dirt covered her arms. Her breathing was ragged and broken. Beside her lay Luke, wrapped loosely in a blanket, barely conscious but alive. Jesus stopped several feet away, speaking with a calm that carried more strength than shouting ever could. "Mara." Her entire body went rigid. Slowly, she turned toward him. Her eyes looked lost, terrified, and full of a pain no one had ever bothered to understand. She didn't seem to recognize him. "I have to protect him," she whispered. "They want to take him. They want to hurt him. You don't understand." Jesus took a single step forward. Mara pulled the child closer, her mind racing in a nightmare of her own creation. "There is no they," he said softly, "but there is help." Her breathing hitched. No, they'll find us. They always find us." The boy whimpered. His small fingers twitched. Jesus knelt down slowly, showing his empty hands. "Mara, look at him. Really look." For a moment, clarity flickered in her eyes. She saw the fear on her son's face. She saw the trembling in his hands. She saw what she had almost done, not out of hate, but out of a delusion born from exhaustion and untreated illness. "I didn't mean to hurt him," she whispered, tears spilling. I didn't know what else to do." The voices wouldn't stop. "Then let me help you," Jesus said. Her hands loosened, her shoulders collapsed. She released Luke with a sob that tore from somewhere deep and broken. Jesus moved quickly but gently, lifting the child with care, holding him close. Luke clung to him instantly, burying his face in his chest. Mara fell into the dirt, crying uncontrollably, whispering apologies to a world that had never listened to her pain until now. Minutes later, the sirens broke the silence. Sheriff Dalton arrived with 2 deputies, confusion spreading across his face as he took in the scene. The disturbed earth, the crying woman, the stranger holding the child. "Sir, put the boy down slowly," the sheriff called out. Jesus didn't flinch. "He's safe." Dalton hesitated, something in Jesus's voice quieting his instincts. The deputies approached Mara carefully. She didn't resist. She didn't run. She simply wept, exhausted and defeated. As they led her to the patrol car, she looked back at Luke, her expression shattered by love and regret. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I tried to protect you." Luke didn't answer. He was too shocked, too young to understand. But he reached out weakly as the paramedic took him, his hand searching for the calm he had felt in Jesus' arms. Jesus touched his fingers gently before the ambulance doors closed. Sheriff Dalton stood in the field, taking in the aftermath of a tragedy that could have ended in incomprehensible loss. "You saved that boy's life," Dalton said quietly. Jesus stared toward the ambulance. His mother saved him first. She just didn't know how to ask for help. The sheriff didn't understand, not fully, but he nodded anyway. The ambulance drove off. The patrol car followed. And as the dust settled, the forgotten town of Dry Creek felt the first crack of light in a darkness it had ignored for too long. The news of what happened in the clearing spread through Dry Creek faster than the morning wind. People who barely spoke to one another were suddenly whispering on porches, exchanging glances at the diner, locking their doors a little earlier than usual. It wasn't every day that a mother was found in such a state, trembling in the dirt, crumbling under the weight of her own mind. And it wasn't every day that a strange man named Jesus appeared in the exact place he was needed. But while the town gossiped, the real story unfolded quietly in 2 places, the small hospital 10 miles away and the sheriff's station at the edge of town. Luke was carried into the emergency room, wrapped in warm blankets, his eyes blinking slowly, confused and frightened. The nurses moved around him gently, speaking in soft tones. He was cold, dehydrated, and in a state of shock, but he was safe. When they asked him simple questions, his name, his age, whether he hurt anywhere, he answered only with nods or small gestures. His voice seemed frozen, trapped by fear. One nurse brushed the dirt from his hair and whispered, "You're all right now, sweetheart. You're safe." But safety was a strange idea for a boy who had lived his whole life in a house where fear often replaced comfort. While Luke received care, Mara sat in a small windowless room at the sheriff's station, wrapped in a blanket, hands shaking. She stared at the table in front of her, blinking slowly, as if every thought dragged through mud before reaching her mind. Her deputy watched her from behind a glass window, more out of concern than suspicion. She didn't look like a criminal. She looked like someone who had fought a quiet war inside herself until it finally broke her. Sheriff Dalton entered the room carrying a folder and a cup of water. He placed the cup in front of her and sat down across the table. "Mara," he began gently, "I need you to understand that your son is safe now. He's at the hospital. The doctors say he'll be okay." Her lips trembled. Tears welled in her eyes but did not fall. "I never wanted to hurt him," she said, voice cracking. "I just wanted to keep him safe." Dalton lowered his voice. "Safe from what?" She hesitated, digging her nails into the blanket. "From them, from the things that follow us, that whisper at night." He exhaled softly. This wasn't malice. This was a mind in collapse. Before he could ask more, a deputy knocked and opened the door slightly. "That man," the deputy said quietly, "the one who found them, Jesus, he's waiting out front, says he wants to speak with her." Dalton frowned. "With her?" "Yes, sir." Dalton considered it. Normally he wouldn't allow a stranger to walk into an interview room where a suspect waited, but something about Jesus made him hesitate. He had seen the man holding Luke earlier, the calm in his eyes, the steadiness in his presence. It wasn't normal, but it wasn't threatening either. Dalton stood. "Bring him in!" When Jesus entered the room, Mara's eyes lifted. For a second, she didn't recognize him. Then her expression softened, just slightly, as though she sensed something familiar, something grounding. Jesus pulled out the chair beside her and sat quietly. He didn't touch her, he didn't rush. He simply looked at her as if he had all the time in the world. "Mara," he said, "your son is going to be all right." Her chin quivered. "They're going to take him away from me, aren't they?" Jesus breathed out slowly. "Right now he needs safety, and you need healing." "I'm not crazy," she whispered. "I swear I'm not. I never said you were. But everyone thinks it," she said. "I hear them talk. I see the way they look at me. People fear what they don't understand." He replied softly. "Your mind has been hurting for a long time. That doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you a monster. It makes you human." Her eyes widened, as though no one had ever spoken to her without judgment. Dalton watched silently. He didn't fully understand what he was witnessing, but he didn't interrupt. Mara's voice grew smaller. I thought if I just hid him from everything, if I kept him close, nothing could hurt him. I hadn't slept. I kept hearing things. I thought someone was coming for him. I thought someone would take him away forever. And that fear became louder than truth," Jesus said gently. "Louder than love. But love is still there. It didn't disappear." She pressed her hands over her face. "What happens now?" Dalton cleared his throat, stepping closer. "A mental health evaluator is on the way. You'll get treatment, Mara. Real treatment. The judge will decide the next steps, but it doesn't mean you'll never see your son again. It just means things need to be safe." For once, she didn't argue. She simply nodded, exhausted, broken, but no longer lost in the same fog. Jesus stood slowly. "I'll go to the hospital," he said. "Your son is waiting for someone to tell him he's not alone." Mara's voice barely rose above a whisper. Tell him I'm sorry." Jesus paused. "I will tell him that you love him." As he turned to leave, Mara let out a breath that sounded like a small piece of her weight falling away. Outside the station, Jesus stepped into the bright afternoon sun. Dry Creek was unusually quiet. People watched him from afar but didn't approach. Children paused their games. Adults lowered their conversations mid-sentence. For reasons none of them could explain, his presence felt like a mirror reflecting their own failures, their neglected responsibilities, their silence in the face of a neighbor's suffering. Jesus didn't look at any of them with anger, only with a sadness that pierced deeper than blame. At the hospital, Luke sat on a small bed with his knees pulled to his chest. The doctors had run their tests and left him to rest. The only sound in the room was the slow, steady beeping of the monitor beside him. When Jesus walked in, Luke looked up instantly. Recognition flickered through his eyes, relief mixed with confusion. Jesus sat beside him and offered a gentle smile. "How are you feeling, Luke?" The boy swallowed hard. "Where's my mom?" "She's getting help," Jesus said truthfully. "She is safe, and so are you." Luke blinked several times, as if deciding whether he could trust that. Then, almost in a whisper, he asked, "Is she mad at me?" "No," Jesus replied softly. "Your mother loves you very much. She was hurting, and it made her afraid. But none of it was your fault." Luke's small shoulders relaxed slightly. He leaned into Jesus' arm, the way a child leans into the first safe thing they've felt in a long time. Outside the hospital room, two nurses watched through the window. "Who is that man?" one asked quietly. The other shook her head. "I don't know, but the kid hasn't said a word since he came in. Now look at him." Inside, Jesus spoke with calm warmth. "You're not alone, Luke. You're not forgotten, and you are stronger than you know." The boy nodded, tears forming. For the first time since the clearing, his voice emerged, small, trembling. "Will she get better?" Jesus looked at him gently. "With help, yes, she can." The boy's tears fell silently as he placed his tiny hand in Jesus's. And for the first time that day, Luke's heartbreak softened into hope. The sun began sinking behind the distant hills of Dry Creek, casting long shadows that stretched across the quiet town. Evening brought a hush to the streets, but inside the hospital and sheriff's station, the events of the day still pulsed through the air, like a wound that hadn't closed. Luke eventually fell asleep, with his small hand still resting on Jesus' sleeve. It had taken hours for his trembling to stop, hours for the panic to loosen its grip, but finally exhaustion carried him into a fragile, peaceful slumber. Jesus remained still beside him, watching the slow rhythm of his breathing. There was something almost sacred in the quiet of the room, a reminder that even in the deepest chaos, moments of calm could bloom like flowers in barren soil. A soft knock came at the door. Sheriff Dalton stepped inside, removing his hat as a sign of respect. "Didn't expect to find you still here," he said quietly. Jesus glanced at the sleeping child. "He's been alone for a long time. Tonight shouldn't be another lonely night." Dalton nodded slowly. "Hospitals aren't easy places, even for grown men. For a kid, it can feel like another world." He hesitated before speaking again. "The social worker will be here in the morning. They'll have to make a placement for the boy. Temporary, at least." Jesus looked up. "And his mother?" Dalton exhaled. "She's with the mental health team now. They say she needs immediate treatment, medication, supervision, maybe long-term care. She's not fighting them. That's something." Jesus didn't respond immediately. The sheriff studied him, trying to understand who exactly he was speaking to. A stranger who arrived out of nowhere, saved a child, sat by him for hours without asking for anything in return. It didn't add up. "You know," Dalton said slowly, "most people who come through this town are running from something, or looking for something. You don't seem to be doing either." Jesus kept his eyes on Luke as he replied, "Sometimes people go where they're needed, not where they planned." Dalton didn't know what to say to that. He simply nodded, gave the sleeping boy one last look, and left the room. As the door clicked closed, Jesus rose from the chair and gently brushed a stray hair from Luke's forehead. The boy stirred slightly but did not wake. Then the lights flickered, not in a frightening way, just briefly, like the building had taken a breath. In that passing moment, something subtle shifted in the air, as though the room inhaled the presence of peace. Jesus stepped to the window, looking down at the dimly lit parking lot. A woman sat on a bench outside, shoulders shaking as she cried into a phone. A doctor walked by with exhaustion etched into every step. A janitor pushed a mop bucket slowly down the hall, humming a song to keep himself awake. All around him were people carrying burdens no one else could see. He closed his eyes briefly, not in prayer exactly, but in something deeper, something that felt like listening. A soft voice came from behind him. "Are you an angel?" Luke's eyes were half open, heavy with sleep. His voice was barely a whisper. Jesus turned. "Why do you think that? You came when I was scared, and you weren't scared. You talked to my mom, and she listened to you. Nobody listens to her." His small fingers curled into the blanket. "And when you held me, I didn't feel cold inside anymore." Jesus walked back to the bed. "I'm not an angel, Luke." The boy blinked slowly. "Then what are you?" Jesus sat down again. "Someone who cares. Someone who heard your heart calling." Luke's lip trembled. It was calling really loud. "I know," Jesus whispered. The door opened again, this time gently. It wasn't the sheriff or a doctor. It was the nurse who had brushed the dirt from Luke's hair earlier. She approached with a soft smile. "I didn't mean to wake him," she whispered. "He woke on his own," Jesus answered. She adjusted Luke's blanket. "He's calmer with you here. Haven't seen a child settle this quickly after trauma in a long time." Trauma. The word felt too heavy for a boy so small. The nurse walked away quietly. A few minutes passed before Luke spoke again. "Will my mom forget me?" "No," Jesus said firmly. "Your mother's mind is tired and sick, but her heart hasn't forgotten you. Hearts don't forget that easily." Luke exhaled shakily. "She used to be happy before the voices started." Jesus listened. "She used to sing to me every night," Luke continued. "She made pancakes every Saturday. She laughed at cartoons. She was warm." His voice cracked. "Then she started getting scared. Of everything. Of everyone. Even of me sometimes. She said she couldn't sleep because the shadows talked. She said someone was coming to take me away." Jesus placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "Your mother was fighting a battle you couldn't see, and she lost her strength." Luke stared at him, searching. "Did she want to hurt me?" "No," Jesus answered. "She wanted to protect you." But fear twisted her thoughts until she couldn't tell hope from danger. Luke wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Is she bad?" Jesus shook his head slowly. "She is broken, but broken things can be healed." The boy's breathing steadied again. He leaned his head against Jesus' arm and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was asleep once more. Jesus stayed until the room fell into deep silence, then stood quietly and stepped out into the hallway. The nurse saw him leave and whispered, "Will you be back?" Jesus paused, his eyes calm and steady. "If I'm needed." Oh. When he walked outside into the cool night, Dry Creek felt different. Not fixed, not healed, but stirred, like a stagnant pond touched by the first breeze in years. People whispered his name as he passed, though none dared approach. And farther away in the sheriff's station, Mara lay in a hospital cot inside a cell, awake, staring at the ceiling, clutching the blanket they'd given her. Her mind was fragile, but for the first time in months, the terror had softened. She replayed the moments in the clearing, the moment when her shaking hands finally loosened, the moment she saw Luke's face clearly again, and the moment she saw Jesus kneeling there, not in judgment, but in understanding. She didn't know who he was, but she knew he had saved her son, and maybe, just maybe, he had saved her too. The sirens faded into the distance, swallowed by the hills surrounding the town. Evening settled slowly, laying itself over the valley like a blanket turning darker by the minute. Streetlights flickered on, one by one, casting amber circles across the quiet neighborhood. Matteo had been taken to the hospital. The mother, Luciana, had been taken into custody. And Jesus, standing alone near the old wooden fence, watched the last police car disappear. The world seemed painfully quiet after everything that had happened. He exhaled the heavy breath he'd been holding for minutes, feeling it finally leave his chest. But peace didn't come. Instead, his mind replayed Luciana's expression, the wild confusion, the mix of fear and desperation, the way her hands shook even after the officers restrained her. She wasn't a monster. Jesus saw something else behind her eyes, something broken. He couldn't shake it off. A cold wind brushed past him, rustling the trees. He closed his eyes for a second, feeling the fatigue from the entire ordeal settle deep into his bones. When he opened them again, neighbors were still scattered around, some whispering, some staring at him as if he were a supernatural figure who had simply walked into their tragedy. A few of them approached. "Was he really still alive?" a woman asked, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Yes," Jesus answered softly. "He was breathing. Weak, but breathing." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank God you came when you did." Jesus nodded but didn't respond immediately. His thoughts were still trapped somewhere else, inside that pit, inside Luciana's trembling voice, inside the fear he had felt when he didn't know if he had arrived too late. Another neighbor, an older man with dirt on his boots, stepped closer. "Did you know her?" he asked. "No." "Then why did you come here?" Jesus looked toward the horizon where the police cars had vanished. The sky above was bruised purple and orange. "I felt something was wrong," he said. "That's all." The truth was more complex. He had learned to trust the pull in his chest, the strange certainty that guided his steps, even when logic couldn't explain it. It had never failed him before, and tonight it had led him straight to a child buried alive. He rubbed his forehead, his pulse finally steadied. The neighbors talked among themselves, some frightened, some angered, some just shocked that something like this could happen on their street. Jesus listened quietly. He understood every emotion. They were all pieces of a single truth. The world was a fragile place, and sometimes people broke in ways others couldn't see. But he also believed that brokenness didn't mean hopelessness. He started walking, his sandals scraping gently against the pavement. He didn't know exactly where he was going, only that he needed to check on Mateo. If the boy was awake, if he could speak, he deserved to see a calm face beside him instead of fear or confusion. Before he could leave the street, a small voice called after him, "Sir, wait!" Jesus turned. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, ran toward him with hesitant steps. Her mother trailed behind, urging her to be careful. But the child ignored her, stopping right in front of Jesus with wide, fearful eyes. "Is the boy going to die?" she asked, voice trembling. Jesus knelt down so he could look at her at eye level. "No," he said gently. "He was hurt, but he's safe now. The doctors will take care of him." The girl sniffled, trying not to cry. "I heard screaming earlier, but I thought it was just the wind. I should have said something. I'm sorry." Jesus placed a hand over her small shoulder. "You didn't know," he said, "and you're not responsible for what happened. But if you ever feel afraid for someone, even a little, it's always okay to speak up. You might help someone one day." The girl nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Then she hugged him, quickly, tightly, before running back to her mother. Jesus stood again, his heart heavy but steady. He continued walking down the street, leaving behind the whispers, the shaken neighbors, the half-dug pit that police had already cordoned off. The town's lights reflected softly on the pavement ahead of him. As he walked, his thoughts returned again to Luciana, her face, her panic, her voice cracking as she shouted that she didn't know what she was doing. There was something there, something deeper than cruelty, something he felt he had to understand. The road to the hospital was long, but Jesus didn't mind. He walked steadily, purposeful, the night air cool on his skin. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights washing him in white for a moment before the darkness reclaimed him. By the time he reached the hospital's entrance, the moon was high in the sky. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed softly. The scent of disinfectant and quiet urgency hung in the air. People filled the waiting room, some exhausted, some worried, some asleep in chairs. Jesus approached the reception desk. The nurse looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to check on a child brought in about an hour ago," he said. "His name is Mateo." The nurse typed quickly, then nodded. "He's stable. Doctors are still running tests, but he regained consciousness a few minutes ago. Only immediate family is allowed in." Jesus lowered his gaze. "I understand. I just want to make sure he's all right." The nurse paused, studying him. His clothes were dusty, his hair messy, his expression tired but sincere. Something about him made her soften. "Wait here," she said gently. "I'll check with the attending doctor." Jesus nodded and sat in the waiting area. Chairs squeaked as people shifted around him. A baby cried somewhere down the hall. A television mounted on the wall played local news with the sound muted. Minutes passed, long ones. Then the nurse returned with a man in a white coat, Dr. Herrera. "You're the one who found the boy?" the doctor asked. "Yes." The doctor extended his hand. "Thank you. If you hadn't intervened when you did..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The weight of the unspoken hung between them. "How is he?" Jesus asked. "Dehydrated, disoriented and frightened, but he's stable. He's asking for someone he calls the man with the white clothes. We assumed it was you." Jesus' heart tightened. "May I see him?" The doctor hesitated, but only for a moment. "Just for a few minutes," he finally said. "He's still very fragile." Jesus nodded, gratitude warming his tired chest. The doctor led him down a quiet corridor, past rooms filled with soft beeping machines and murmured conversations. They stopped at a door with a small window. Inside, Matteo lay on a bed, covered with a thin blanket. His eyes were open, glassy, scared, but awake. When Jesus stepped into the room, the boy's breath caught. "You came," Matteo whispered. Jesus approached the bed slowly, gently. "I told you I would," he said. The boy's tiny hands trembled on top of the blanket. "Am I going to die?" "No," Jesus answered softly. "You're safe. Nothing is going to happen to you here." Matteo exhaled shakily and wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Jesus pulled a chair closer and sat beside him. "Why did she do it?" the boy whispered. "Why my mom? Why did she—" Jesus placed a calming hand on his arm. "We don't have all the answers yet," he said, "but what your mother did doesn't erase your worth. You didn't deserve this. None of it is your fault." The boy cried silently, his small body shaking. Jesus stayed with him, silent and steady, letting the boy's fear spill out without interruption. He knew these were wounds deeper than the body, wounds that hadn't begun today. And as he watched Matteo drift into exhausted sleep, he made a quiet promise to himself. He wouldn't let the story end with pain alone. He would uncover the truth behind Luciana's actions, and he would make sure Matteo never felt alone again. The hospital room dimmed as the night deepened, leaving only the warm glow of a single lamp shining beside Matteo's bed. The soft hum of medical equipment framed the silence. Outside the window, the moonlight spread across the parking lot like a pale sheet. Jesus remained seated beside the sleeping boy, his hands clasped in quiet reflection. Every so often Matteo stirred, murmuring half-formed words, flinching at invisible memories, clutching the blanket with small, frightened fingers. Each movement carved another line of worry into Jesus' face. He couldn't shake the image of Luciana, the trembling mother, dirt beneath her nails, panic flashing through her eyes. Something inside him refused to believe this was a simple act of cruelty. The pieces didn't fit. There had been too much fear in her voice and too little hatred. A gentle knock broke through his thoughts. A nurse peeked inside. "Visiting hours are ending, sir." Jesus nodded slowly, looking back at Matteo's fragile form. Leaving him felt wrong, as if stepping away would cause the safety of the room to dissolve. But he knew he had to, at least for now. "I'll come back in the morning," Jesus whispered, more to the boy than to the nurse. In the hallway, he exhaled deeply. The hospital lights were harsh, cold, almost painfully bright after the dim room. He rubbed the back of his neck and walked toward the exit. As soon as he pushed open the glass doors, the night air washed over him. Cool, crisp and heavy, with the scent of eucalyptus from nearby trees. The parking lot was nearly empty, and standing at the far end, leaning against a police car, was Officer Camila Herrera. Her arms were crossed, her posture tense. She had been waiting. Jesus approached her calmly. "You stayed?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I figured you'd be coming out soon." Her expression was conflicted, professional on the surface, troubled underneath. "Is this about the mother?" Jesus asked gently. Camilla nodded. "Luciana is downstairs, being evaluated. She's not being treated like a regular detainee yet. The mental health team asked me to speak with you." "Why me?" "Because she's been asking for you," Camilla said, repeatedly, almost desperately. Jesus' eyebrows lifted slightly. "For me? She doesn't even know my name." Camilla uncrossed her arms, frustrated and uneasy. "Exactly. She keeps calling you the man in white and saying you saw what wasn't yours to see. She alternates between crying and begging and shutting down completely. We don't know if she's dangerous or terrified or both." Jesus absorbed the information with a sinking feeling. "I want to talk to her," he said. Camilla hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "It's necessary." After a tense moment, she nodded. "Follow me," she said quietly. They walked around the side of the hospital and approached a lower-level entrance marked Mental Health Assessment, authorized personnel only. The security guard standing there recognized Camilla and stepped aside. Inside, the lights were dimmer, the atmosphere heavier, like the walls themselves held the residue of distress. Camilla led him through a series of hallways until they reached a small observation room with a window overlooking a single holding cell. Luciana sat inside. Her hair was tangled, her clothes still stained with soil, her wrists free but trembling. She hugged her knees to her chest, rocking slightly, as if trying to keep herself together by sheer force. Her eyes were hollow, but her breathing, shallow and frantic, proved she was still fighting a war inside her mind. When she saw Jesus through the glass, she jolted. "There!" she shouted, pointing with a shaking hand. "That's him! That's the man!" Jesus stepped closer, but Camilla put a hand on his arm. "Let me speak to her first," she said softly. Camilla entered the cell, leaving the door open behind her. "Luciana, this is the man who found your son. His name is—" "Stay away!" Luciana interrupted, pressing herself against the wall. "You shouldn't have been there. I wasn't ready yet." Jesus' voice was calm, soothing. "Luciana, your son is alive." Her rocking stopped. "What?" "He's alive," Jesus repeated. "He's safe at the hospital." Luciana's face twisted. Shock, disbelief, grief all crashing together. Tears streamed down her cheeks instantly. No, you're lying. I heard him stop breathing. I thought. Her voice broke completely. She covered her face with both hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Jesus stepped inside the room. Camilla watched carefully, hand near her holster, but something in her softened too. Jesus approached slowly, not wanting to startle the fragile woman. "Luciana," he said softly, "tell me what happened. Not to defend yourself, not for the police, for him, for Matteo." She shook her head violently. "I didn't want to hurt him. I swear I didn't. I love my son. I love him so much." "Then why?" Jesus asked gently. Her voice came out fractured. "Because they told me he wasn't real." Jesus frowned slightly, but he didn't interrupt. Luciana pressed her hands into her skull as if trying to hold her thoughts inside. "For weeks," she whispered, "I heard voices, whispers at night. I saw shadows. They said I was losing my mind, that Matteo was something else, that he was dangerous, that he wasn't supposed to exist. And I believed them. I believed the darkness more than my own eyes." Her knees gave out, and she sank to the floor. Jesus knelt beside her. "Luciana, you have a medical condition. You're not cursed. You're not possessed. You need help." "No," she sobbed. "I'm broken. I'm a monster. I don't deserve him." Jesus shook his head firmly. "What you did was driven by fear, by an illness, not by hate. You need treatment, not condemnation." Luciana cried harder, burying her face in his shoulder. He stayed there, anchoring her as her world fell apart in her arms. Camilla watched, stunned. This wasn't a man comforting a criminal. This was a man lifting someone from the deepest part of their mind's darkness. After long minutes, Luciana whispered, "Is he really alive?" "Yes," Jesus said quietly. "He's waiting for you to heal." A breath escaped her. All pain, all regret, all fragile hope. Jesus stood slowly, helping her back onto the bench. Camilla stepped in again. "We'll make sure she receives psychiatric evaluation," she said. This isn't the behavior of a typical offender." Jesus nodded. "Take care of her." As he left the room, Luciana whispered behind him, "Thank you for seeing me." Outside, the night was colder, but Jesus felt something shift, like a truth had been uncovered, and the real battle had only begun. He wasn't done. There was more to discover, more to protect, and Matteo's future depended on what came next. Morning sunlight crept slowly over the hills. painting the town in soft gold as the new day awakened. Birds began to stir, cars hummed in the distance, and life resumed its rhythm. Yet nothing felt normal to Jesus. He walked back toward the hospital with quiet, steady steps. He hadn't slept. His mind had been occupied by two faces all night: Matteo's, fragile but fighting, and Luciana's, broken, terrified, drowning in guilt. Two souls linked by a tragedy neither of them fully understood or controlled. As he entered the hospital lobby, the nurse at reception recognized him immediately. "Good morning," she whispered with a tired smile. "The boy has been asking for you again." Jesus nodded, his heart easing slightly. The nurse led him to Matteo's room, where the boy was awake, sitting up, a small breakfast tray untouched beside him. His eyes brightened the moment Jesus walked in. "You came back," he murmured, voice soft but hopeful. "I told you I would," Jesus said, pulling the chair closer. Matteo hesitated, then asked, Is my mom dead?" "No," Jesus answered gently. "She's alive, she's safe, and she's getting the help she needs." Matteo's lips trembled. "Is she coming here?" "Not yet," Jesus said, "but she will, when she's ready, and when the doctors say she's well." The boy chewed on his trembling lip. "Does she hate me?" Jesus leaned forward, voice low and firm. "Your mother loves you more than you know. What happened wasn't her heart speaking, it was her illness. Fear twisted her thoughts, but love was always there, even when she couldn't see it." Silence fell, heavy but healing. Then Matteo's small hand reached for his. Jesus held it gently. "Don't leave me alone," the boy whispered. And something inside Jesus, something ancient, something instinctively compassionate, brightened softly. "You're not alone," he said. "Not now, not ever." A soft knock came at the door. Officer Camilla peeked inside. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, stepping in. "I've got updates, important ones." Jesus turned to her, attentive. Camilla continued. "Luciana underwent a full psychiatric evaluation early this morning. She's been diagnosed with severe postpartum psychosis, but untreated for years. According to the doctors, her condition likely worsened recently, causing hallucinations and voices." Matteo's eyes widened. "She was sick?" "Yes," Camilla said softly. "Very sick. And without help, her mind convinced her of things that weren't real." The boy lowered his gaze, tears forming again. Jesus wrapped an arm around him, pulling him close. Camilla cleared her throat, her voice thickening. "She isn't being charged with attempted murder, not in the traditional sense. The report will move toward a psychiatric treatment order instead of prison. They believe she can recover." Jesus nodded, relief radiating quietly from him. "And one more thing," Camilla added. "Luciana asked to send a message to her son. Only one sentence, repeated 3 times. Matteo lifted his head. Camilla swallowed, then recited, "Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him he saved me, and tell him I love him." The boy broke, completely. He cried into Jesus' chest, his small hands gripping tightly as if he feared the world might disappear again. Jesus held him through every sob. Minutes passed, long, painful, cleansing minutes. When Matteo finally lifted his head, his eyes were red but calmer. "Can I see her?" he asked. "Not yet," Camilla said gently. "But soon, very soon." Matteo nodded. Jesus ran a hand through the boy's hair. "You're brave," he said, "more than you realize." The boy's voice came out fragile. "Will you stay until she gets better?" Jesus paused, not because he doubted the answer, but because he felt the weight of what it meant. He looked at the child beside him, a boy who had fought for breath under the earth, a boy whose mother loved him but whose mind betrayed her, a boy who needed more than temporary comfort. "Yes," Jesus said softly, "for as long as you need." Matteo exhaled with visible relief. Camilla watched the scene quietly, her eyes softer than they had been at any point since the ordeal began. "You know," she said after a moment, "I've seen a lot of things in my job, but I've never seen someone bring this much calm into chaos." Jesus offered her a faint smile. "Chaos doesn't scare me," he said. "Losing people does." Camilla nodded, feeling the truth of that settle deep. Time passed. Days turned into a week. Matteo recovered physically faster than anyone expected. He gained strength, his nightmares lessened, and he began to smile, small at first, then brighter. The hospital staff adored him, especially after he started leaving little drawings by the nurses' station to thank them for their magic. Luciana, meanwhile, stabilized in the psychiatric facility. Medication quieted her hallucinations, therapy restored her clarity, and slowly, painfully, she began to remember what happened. Her first question every morning was the same: "Is my son okay?" And the doctor always answered, "He's healing, just like you." Jesus visited both of them. With Matteo, he played card games, helped him walk again without trembling, and listened to his fears without judgment. With Luciana, he sat through her tears, let her speak, let her break, and let her rebuild. "You're not a monster," he told her once. "You're a mother who needed help, and now you're finally getting it." She cried into her hands that day, but her recovery moved forward. 2 weeks later, on a warm afternoon, the reunion happened. Supervised, gentle, careful. Matteo stood in a quiet therapy room, holding Jesus' hand tightly. Luciana stood near the door, her entire body shaking. When their eyes met, neither moved for several seconds. Then Matteo whispered, "Mom!" Luciana broke down, sobbing but smiling, falling to her knees as he ran to her. She wrapped her arms around him, repeating, "I'm sorry," over and over until her voice gave out. Matteo held her as if he'd never let go again. Jesus watched with a soft, tired smile. Camilla stood beside him, whispering, "You did this." Jesus shook his head. "No, they did. I just showed up." Camilla smirked slightly. "Sometimes showing up saves lives." He exhaled, eyes warm. "Sometimes it saves more than that." The room glowed with the quiet miracle of healing. Raw, imperfect, but real. And as Jesus stepped outside into the sunlight, leaving the reunited family behind, he felt something he hadn't felt since the day everything began. Hope, not quick, not easy, not magical, but human, earned, precious. He walked down the road, the breeze lifting the hem of his white clothes, the sky wide and open above him. Somewhere behind him, a mother held her son. Somewhere ahead of him, someone else might need saving, and as always, he would walk toward them.